allocated to the counties, the criteria, the deadlines, and the plans, the tentative plans that we have for that funding. I'm going to address Commissioner Shriver's comments and requests the other night in terms of water and sewer rates, and also have some information that I wanted to share with you. Ask the board if you had any particular topics or anything that you wanted to make sure that we address why it was in the budget or not. So I've got an item that Commissioner Jones wanted to make sure that we brought forward, and anything else that the board would like to discuss this evening, we're prepared. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie Holtzman, our finance director, and Jamie is going to walk through the PowerPoint, and we'll tag team that.
Yes, ma'am. Let's share my screen from my budget. Y'all are all familiar with my presentation from earlier this week. The requested budget that we got from the departments was a little over $93 million. The recommended budget that we brought to you on Monday night was $88.89 million, which was a reduction of $4.6 million before it was presented. The fiscal year 19-20 adopted budget was $89.6 million, as were the 2021 recommended budget is $88.9 million, a reduction of $746,192 from the current budget we're in. The ad valorem tax rate is proposed to stay at the same 80.5 cents per hundred. We are not recommending any tax increase for 2021. As you can see from the graph, all of the different categories that make up the general fund, the general government went up 127,000. The public safety category went down 335,000. Economic and physical development went down 347,000. Human services went up 316,000. The culture and leisure went up 83,299. And education went down 590,253, which was in part because of a reduction in debt service, and then their reduction of $1 million requested made the difference. Overall, that's the reduction of 746,192 when you take the minuses and additions together. If you have any questions, please stop me. This graph shows the budgeted county tax dollars for fiscal year 2021 compared to 19-20. As you can see, the amount of county dollars budgeted only increased a total of 52,476. So we didn't increase a lot of the county tax dollars. The general government went down 125,686. Public safety went up 254,719. Economic and physical development went down 312,149. Human services went up 82,221. Culture and leisure went up 57,578, and education went up 95,793.
Jamie, if I could pause just 1 second and acknowledge that Commissioner Foy is back on the line, I believe. And Coy, if you could confirm that Commissioner Speed is trying to get in on the call as well.
I haven't seen him come in yet. Try to come in.
Okay. He
I
just
see him
sent me a
now.
text, so just
He'll be on in a second.
okay. Go ahead, Jamie. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. As this graph shows where our county tax dollars are going for 2021, education is the biggest piece of the pie at 39%, with public safety at 35%, human services following at 11%, general government at 10%, economic and physical development at 3%, and cultural leisure at 2%. This is pretty much in line with 19-20 as well. I mean, yeah, for the current budget as well. This graph shows the key revenue comparison for 19 versus 20. The property tax is increase of $1.7 million, but again, we have reduced our collection rate from the 8.4 to 97.5%. I'm sorry, I got lost on my notes. And we're not using that audited number because of the COVID. Our sales and use tax, we're using our budgeted number from fiscal year 18-19, which is a reduction of $458,873 from our budgeted number for 19-20. The Register of Deeds are still showing a very good pace right now. And so we're budgeting 900 compared to 800 from last year, an increase of 100,000. Inspection fees are also still holding strong at the moment, and we're budgeting at 1.1 million compared to 1 million in 19-20, an increase of 100,000. Lottery funds, we are projecting to have a shortfall next year of 150,000. And our capital reserve sales tax, this is the percentage of our sales tax that's earmarked for schools. And with sales tax as a whole looking as being lower next year, that too is going down from 3.5 to 2.9, a reduction of 600,000. We are anticipating our jail fees to remain stable. So there's no increase or decrease for that. And then our fund balance, we have budgeted for the 2021 at $4.486 million. And in 19-20, we have budgeted $4.3 million, which is an increase of $162,404. This slide showing you the amount of funding for nonprofits and state funding. All of them stayed level from the 19-20, except the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission Beaver Management Assistance Program went up $2,000. Boys and Girls is staying at $25,000. Franklin Granville Advanced Smart Start at $5,000. Franklin County Arts Council at $5,000. Franklin Advanced Warren Opportunities at $13,750. Safe Space at $75,000, and then the Tar River History and Culture Center at $10,000 for a total of $139,750. The retirement rate from the North Carolina Local Government Employees Retirement System increased in 2021 from 9.04% to 10.23% for non-law enforcement officers, and from 9.70% to 10.84% for law enforcement. This is a total increase of $323,213 for 2021 in the general fund. And again, this is expected to increase again in 21-22. The new general fund positions, including benefits that we are proposing, are only 4 out of the 13 that were requested. The school resource officer at $58,800. The public health nurse at $72,131, a community paramedic to start January 1st at $36,791, and the county fire marshal again to start January 1st at $43,918 for a total of new positions in the general fund at $211,737. We had a request of 30 vehicles for a total of $1.8 million from our departments. However, with the COVID-19 and the reduction in the potential reduction in revenues, we are only recommending 1 QRV for the EMS at $44,193, and there will be no vehicle financing as well. Some additional items that are funded in the budget is a 2% COLA starting January 1st, and that cost with benefits for the general fund is $311,985. We're maintaining the broadband funding at $188,000. There's the UDO development plan that is in the budget at $125,000, the countywide bike and pedestrian plan at $40,000, and the Epsom Park master plan at $20,000. We are fully funding education again for this year. The Board of Education's current expense is $21,192,936 compared to the The capital outlay is 1 million compared to 2 million last year, for a net decrease of 156,895. And also, we're fully funding the request of the Vance Granville Community College, and they are recommending a level funding. Sorry. And this is the estimated fund balance projections as of 6/30/20. Our audited figure of our fund balance at the end of June 30th, 2019 was 39.2 million. And with all of the restrictions by state statute and what we have earmarked and what I am projecting for our revenues and our expenses for 2020, I am projecting an unassigned fund balance of 19.8 million. And when you take that number compared to our estimated expenses of 89.7, it leaves us an unassigned fund balance of 22.16%, which is above the 18% that you have in your policy. And our estimated total fund balance of 35.5 million. This is just a quick update on where we are with fiscal year 1920 budget. We're estimating revenues to be over our budget by 544,934. And we're estimating our expenditures to be under budget by $1.1 million. However, the estimated decrease to fund balance, or the amount of fund balance that we're going to have to use to balance the budget, is 3.698388. That's still not using all of the fund balance that we do have appropriated at this time.
And Jamie, I'll probably add to that, that's due to the decisions that were made throughout the fiscal year.
Yes, ma'am. This is a comparison of the fund balance appropriated to balance the budget over the years. As you can see, in 2021, the 4.4 million compared to the 4.3 in 19. And then in 2018-19, it was only 2.7 million. And now we're moving on to the solid waste recommended budget. The 1920 approved budget was 4.4 million, where the recommended budget for 2021 is 4.5, an increase of $62,679. And they have to be self-sufficient as well, and are supposed to not need any loans or transfers from the general fund. And this year, this budget is balanced with no transfer from the general fund. Some of the key items in the solid waste budget are the Ford truck at $25,814. And I have a correction to this slide. It's only one trash compactor for $22,000. I apologize for that.
Right.
And 10 30-yard containers at $38,000. And then a solid waste study at $30,000. And again, no transfer from the general fund compared to the $413,000 that we have budgeted in 19.
And that solid waste study is a carryover from this fiscal year.
Yes, ma'am. And then the solid waste availability fee, we are proposing to increase that from $90 to $100 for a household to help get them more self-sufficient, and because of what the auditors have told us is coming for the landfill closure, post-closure expenses. And now for the public utilities recommended, it's 9.6 million for operational and 1.4 for debt service, for a total budget of 11.1 million. Compared to the fiscal year 19 budget of 11.2, it's a decrease of $131,263 for public utilities. And some key items in their budget are the new positions with benefits. This is 2 less than what they had originally requested. We're recommending 2 utility maintenance workers starting January 1st for a total of $60,490. An industrial electrician starting January 1st at $42,350. And a heavy equipment operator lead, again starting January 1st at $36,792 for a total of $139,632 for new positions. Some other vehicle requests in the public utilities budget. are a truck for $47,500, a 4x4 half-ton truck for $30,200, UTV for $17,000, a 4x4 regular cab for $30,200, an extended cab 4x4 dump truck for $70,000, and an extended cab 4x2 truck for $25,000.
And just to comment on that, some of that was requested, those items were requested last year, but could not be recommended for funding.
Yes, ma'am. And then also some additional capital outlay requests is $40,000 for the WIMS program for the wastewater treatment plant compliance, a hydraulic trash pump for $11,008, and a hydraulic breaker for $12,004, and a mini excavator for $43,000. There are no proposed fee changes for the water sewer fees. However, it is proposed to increase the late fee from $7.50 to $10, and the FOG, the fats, oil, and greases fee from $10 to $12. With the public utilities, they do not have any transfer from the general fund anyway, but they do have a loan from the general fund that they will be paying off completely in the 2021 budget. And so they will not have any loan left over, and the payment for 2021 is $736,918.
That's good.
And that is all I have for the presentation.
Okay, Jamie, did you have another slide on fund balance as far as the history that you wanted to share?
I have the fund balance for public utilities. Would you like that? And I also have a fund balance that shows you how much has been appropriated every year and how much has been used. Which one would you like first?
Yes, let's go ahead and do the public utilities first.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot I got to share screen first.
That's okay.
This is the projection of the fund balance for the general fund, the public utility fund balance projection. The audited balance as of June 30th, 2019 was 5.8 million. We have the Youngsville project that y'all approved Monday night is going to be using 866,890 of fund balance. The emergency water solution maybe 168,000, and appropriated for fiscal year 20 was $242,000. Then the projected revenues minus the projected expenses for fiscal year 20 is leaving a projected fund balance for public utilities of a little over $5 million. And keep in mind their total budget is $11 million. So they have a very healthy fund balance.
Jamie, could you scroll your screen down so we could see those numbers? I'm looking at
General fund.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see what it's showing you. It's not showing you public utilities?
No. I was going to ask you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let's see. I apologize.
Fund.
Okay, now can you see the public utilities fund balance?
Perfect.
Okay, I apologize. But as you can see, the total projected fund balance for June 30th is $5,079,000. Again, that's still with the unknown of revenues coming in because of the COVID and the revenue lost due to the executive order with no late fees and turnoffs and such. And it has affected our revenues. Would you like me to pull up the spreadsheet that shows the fund balance used in the years?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
Mhm.
I apologize.
That's always a point I think several commissioners will point out. We appropriate fund balance, but don't always use the full amount. So we've got a good history of that. This year, we're going to use more than we have in prior years, and with a lot of the unknowns, kind of like what we experienced in 2008 and 9, We may very well next year, but we do have a good track record of not having to fully utilize it. And Jamie's got a slide that'll point that out.
Okay, let's see if this will work this time.
Ms. Harris, is that slide going to show us what the actual number was, not what was budgeted, but we actually used out of fund
Yeah.
balance?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
It
Yes, sir.
shows you both, and it's actually, this spreadsheet itself is included in your budget books that you received.
Okay.
But this is the exact same thing. This shows you, can you see it on my screen first off?
Yes.
Okay,
And Jamie, is that under tab 12? It's toward the back of the book.
it's on tab 12, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I
As you
see
can
it.
see,
Okay.
as you can see, you know, where we have budgeted the 4.3 for 2020 and where we are right now is 5.5. And so where I'm projecting to spend 3.6. And as you can tell in 2019, we had originally budgeted 2.7. The final budget, it was 4.6, but we actually made 2.4. So the negatives are good when you're looking at fund balance numbers.
And
That means
just
you're
a-
actually putting that money back in fund balance.
Thank you. A comment, final budgeted amount would include any budget amendments because of, board action and opportunities throughout the year. So you might start out appropriating in a budget 4.3 million, but your final budget after any budget amendments and decisions that are made, 5.5. That's why you'll see the final budget and then what we actually utilize. Those years with parentheses, as Jamie pointed, that's a good thing.
We want parentheses on this one.
That's right.
Ms. Harris, is it fair to say that based on your current budget, I just looked at the numbers you give, like revenues up 545,000, expenses are down 1.1 million, so on and so forth, that roughly we're looking at maybe about $1 million appropriation out of our fund balance if everything is just as it appears on this paper?
Now that is for the current fiscal year, and she has taken into consideration everything that the board has decided to date and has an estimated amount of 3.6 million.
Okay, so, okay.
Mhm.
I'll get with you later on that. I don't want to tie up time here.
But we've had a number of years of positive. We did a 10-year look back. And again, those years that you had the parentheses, you had opportunities throughout the year to maximize your revenues. And that's what we always want our departments to do, minimize the expenditures and to save money. And so that we not only don't use the amount that's appropriated for fund balance, but actually return money to the general fund.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, all during the years, when we have something that comes up with the water and sewer department about wanting to spend money, and I always ask the question, isn't the user, the water rates, sewer rates paying for that department and what they do?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you can say it's self-sufficient.
It is, and we are covering as far as the operating cost currently with the user rates. The point that Commissioner Shriver brought up the other night with future expected cost associated with expansion of our system, and I'm going to address that in a few minutes. We know that we will need to have some rate adjustments, system development fee adjustments perhaps, and also we'll be looking for any grant opportunities. But what you just had presented before you is just the general fund where the ad valorem taxes are concerned, nothing to do with water and sewer. But right now she has presented a budget. In fact, Jamie, this year's 1920 in terms of public utilities budget, you expect a return to their fund balance of what amount?
$487,402 right now
That's-
is my estimate.
Yes, sir. And that's through the fees that are collected. Ms. Ford, back to your question.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
we're still getting on more users, more customers, and I would think that would help the mathematic part of it.
Yes, sir.
Volume.
If we continue, and I even made a comment in the budget message, looks like we'll have quite a few additional accounts before year end, but we have over 7,000. And Chris Doherty is actually on the call tonight or this evening. If there are any specific questions about how many are water or sewer, I probably have that in the narrative, but our customer base has grown. You're exactly right.
I mean,
We
the
were at
reason,
5,000.
okay, the reason I asked that, I mean, I know our water rates, especially the water rates, are a little bit higher than the norm. And, you know, and I always understanding that that system is paying for itself through the water rates. And that's my question about raising water rates. I wouldn't want to do it if we don't need to, but.
And I will have when we finish this, I'm going to have a couple of comments and maybe a suggestion of how we might want to approach that, because we will have additional expense on the horizon, depending on some of the decisions that are made in reference to expanding the county's ability to have a long-term sustainable water supply. But we do have a balanced budget and are covering it as far as operating expenses right now. That fund balance is important to have on hand so that when you have projects, just as we presented on Monday night, the Youngsville project, it was an opportune time when they were going to disrupt their streets for us to go ahead and to do some capital replacement. That was a great opportunity to team up and to have two projects running concurrently. And sometimes it's we have unintended expenses to come up with public utilities, and they tend to be fairly expensive. So that fund balance has been important over the years when we have any kind of breaks or any kind of problems to come up. But we are covering the operating expenses right now, and 2021 we will have fully repaid the general fund, which helped the public utility fund, the water and sewer fund, to get its start years ago. If we hadn't done that, the cost per thousand for a gallon of water, cost per thousand would have been astronomically high. It had to have some assistance to start with. Yes, sir. Jamie, anything else?
Would you like me to talk about the fire departments now, or?
Okay, yes, let's move right along to fire departments. We had, I believe it was 5 fire departments that requested some increase in their tax rate. And we want to share with you at a high level what some of those increases have been requested for. So if you will, pull that information up.
Yes, ma'am. There were 5 departments that requested an increase, and the Central Fire or the Lewisburg wanted an increase of 0.25, and their reasoning behind it was wanting to increase from the 8.5 to 8.75, as was their rate in fiscal year 18-19. They wanted to get back to that rate. Is their reasoning for raising the tax rate. Epson is going from 8.25 to 9.40. And this is for capital items, such as they've got 20 air packs at $133,000, 37 sets of gear at $85,000, and then upgrades to their building and brush trucks that are needed is why they need to raise their rate. White level is needing to raise from 7.5 to 8.75. And this is to help offset the cost of paid staff working at the station. Currently, they have staff working 3 days a week, and they want to increase to 5 days a week. And this is raising the tax rate to help them to reach that goal. Franklinton is increasing from 6.25 to 7. And theirs is for future expansion of the building, personnel, and equipment, and also to help them maintain their ISO rating and their plan that they've had going for several years. Bunn is requesting to raise from 6.6 to 7.5. They have added a full-time paid lieutenant to their roster and need to be prepared for future building and equipment needs. I also want to point out that no fire department asked for a rate decrease this year. All of the others are maintaining their current rate.
And Jamie, I didn't ask you ahead of time to do this, but if you will walk through the process, what you did in meeting with the representatives from the different fire departments, if you will. I think that would be interesting.
Yes, ma'am. This year we decided to take a little different approach with, especially with me being my first full year here and everything in Franklin County. So I went out to the fire departments. They had a fire commission meeting where all the chiefs were at. And I explained what the budget process was going to be. I showed them all of their forms that I had, talked to them about their evaluation rates as they were, their tax base. And then followed it up with an email with all of the forms and their estimated valuation that they needed, and they returned it to me. I have to say I've really enjoyed working with the fire departments and have spoken with a lot of them individually. And I think we're on a good path with the fire departments this year. It was a very learning experience with them. Yes, sir.
Did you say that Central Fire Department wanted to raise their taxes just because they wanted to get back to the old rate? And if I heard that correctly, is that a common reason to want to increase fire rates without having a plan for the money?
I think that was what they stated, but it was to cover the expenses and the planned activities. I think that was how they had worded it, but it was to cover the projected expenses and planned activities. Yes, sir. I know we kind of questioned that too, but then a deeper dive, it was to cover what was it, what was planned. Yes, sir. Good question. Any other questions about the fire departments? I think that exercise that Jamie just described, not only was it certainly helpful to her, but walking through and calculating with these representatives exactly how their rates are calculated, the tax base, the growth, and all gave them some ownership in the process. It was I believe, mutually beneficial, and we got positive feedback about it. So we'll continue that practice moving forward. If there are no questions, Chairman, we're going to move along then. Yes, sir. Jamie, let's now talk a little bit about the capital improvement plan, both in the general fund and our enterprise funds. What we had included in the budget last year, a capital improvement plan to use as a guide, not funded, but as a guide with projects that the board has discussed throughout the years. Many of these projects will be dependent on us, our ability to leverage county money and grants through state, federal grant opportunities. So if you will, let's walk through that.
Yes, ma'am. Let me share my screen again so y'all can see this. I want to also point out that this is under tab 6 in the budget book that you've received, if you would like to follow along. Go back one. This is the general fund CIP recommendations. As you can see, what's under the 2021 is what we have in our actual proposed budget to you. The 200,000 for our public buildings, the 188,000 for broadband, the 44,000 for vehicles, and the 1 million for school. And then if you go out for the further years, you can see that we have the new facility for the government for a totaling of $17.7 million. And you can see over on the right-hand side as well, where we are, I apologize, it keeps going away from me, are looking at our possible revenue sources, whether that be from the fund balance or getting loans or grants. That's to be determined and to be explored further when we get into those projects. Again, this is just a planning document to see what we have on our horizon. We have the library expansion at $6 million, the sheriff's office building and grounds at $400,000, the EMS stations at $700,000, the Triangle North Executive Airport at the 16.6, and then the ongoing repairs to our HVACs and paving and roof for the public buildings And the broadband, we had an approved contract for the 564,000 is where you see that 188 for the next 3 years. And the vehicles, we just did an estimate of, how many vehicles we think we may use and projecting that out. And school capital funding, we know will probably go back to 2 million for next year. And we have that put in. And I wanted to point out that, the Triangle North Executive Airport did receive that $513,000 grant that y'all approved a couple of meetings ago that required a $57,000 match. That is not showing up because that project ordinance was done in fiscal year 1920. If there has been a project ordinance already set up for things, it is not on our CIP recommendation because that is an actual funded project. Are there any questions about the general fund CIP?
I have one, Jamie.
Yes, sir.
So on the water capacity expansion and the sewer, water sewer infrastructure, the last 2 line items there.
You're in public utilities?
Yes.
I hadn't gotten there yet, Mr.
All right,
Carter.
I'll wait for you then. Sorry.
You're jumping ahead. Is that it?
No, you're still on. There you go. There you go.
For public utilities, I broke it down into 5 broad categories. And inside of these broad categories are more in-depth projects with costs associated with them. Again, everything under the 2021 is what is in our proposed budget to you. For the vehicles and equipment is $287,000 for this year and $480,000 for the water capacity expansion. And then for 21 through 24, 25, those are specific vehicles and equipment that he is expecting to need. I have the details behind that and be glad to send out to y'all if you would like. When the administrative upgrades for the 2021, we have a automated meter reading system that's $650,000 a year. We're talking about doing it in 4 stages. And so one stage of it would come on in 2021. And then the other 2 things are an asset management system and a rate study that we were looking at doing next fiscal year. And then for the facility improvements, that is a range of things from like shop and storage building repairs and uplifting, a new admin maintenance facility, repaving roads and that kind of thing. And that totals the $12 million that we have spread out over the 2 years. The water sewer infrastructure, that consists of, like, for example, a new elevated tank and some force main replacements and outfalls, very specific things that go into those totals for the years going out. And then the expansion, the water capacity expansion, we just have a plug figure right now, to be honest. And again, for the funding source, we have for the fund balance for the public utilities, again, nothing from the general fund. And hopefully we could get some state loans and grants and such to help pay for these. We just don't know exactly where the funds will come from at this time.
So you have a breakdown of what makes these numbers up?
I do, yes, sir. And I will be glad to email that out to the commissioners.
I'd enjoy seeing. I realize it's just a projection, but again, that would be good to see.
Right. And the projects have a potential to change, over the time, and
Sure.
The price obviously would go up or down as well, but I'll be glad to email that out.
And they're in a color-coded spreadsheet that's easy to read. It's in
I can pull it up to show
reader
you.
friendly. Yes. Yeah, but I was gonna say, pull it up. That might be,
That way you can at least see it.
yes. We'll send that out, Commissioner, right after the meeting.
Great, thank you.
1 second, I apologize.
Does your spreadsheet incorporate like what percentage or about approximate amount of money could possibly garnered from grants versus fees versus loans?
No, sir, we are not to that level yet,
Okay.
not knowing really what would be out there when it is time to do
Take some
that.
time. Sure. Very good.
Can you see my screen,
I
my
can.
spreadsheet? Okay.
Capital. Yeah.
As you can, well, let's see if it'll let me. As you can see, it's color coded. And then I have my little legend down here telling you the facility is the purple, the infrastructure is the orange color, and admin is yellow. And
Okay.
it breaks it down. And it even is broke down by what is 510 water and what is 511 sewer.
Jamie, if you will, stay right there with the asset management system and the rate study. I'll
Ma'am.
and provide a couple of comments there. Commissioner Shriver brought up the other night some incremental changes in terms of fees being preferable than to maybe rate shock at a later date when we expand the fees. And I think that that's certainly a good point. We are covering the operating expenses right now, as I stated earlier, and have some fund balance. But one of the plans for 21-22 was to have some rate analysis, especially after the conclusion of the water study, and some options are delineated and some decisions are made. We actually talked today, Commissioner Shriver and I actually spoke a little earlier this evening, and at the staff level, over the last few days, we've talked about maybe we should move that analysis up if we are at that point for 2021 rather than 21-22 fiscal year. So that we'll certainly look at the opportunity to possibly do that in the upcoming fiscal year if the board decides to do that. The other thing, the asset management system, we had on the plan for 21-22. Our engineers usually perform those applications or will complete those applications at cost, submit them to the state by September, and we will know sometime in February whether or not we are awarded. You see the cost that's projected at $250. Those grants are 85 to 90% typically. We would have the choice whether to accept them, but we could have very little very little public utility funds actually in that. So we may want to move that forward a year as well with the board's support. So I think a rate analysis to not only on the end user consumer rates, but to go back and to look at the system development fee structure that was in place. We left it as is, didn't make any changes. To look at all of that as we are getting a little further in our water study might be a good recommendation. And then have a policy in place for how we would go about those incremental changes. The financial institutions, your banks, your lending, your funders for any loans or grants, they like to see having some plan for those changes so that you don't have the rate shock, sticker shock, with rate hikes. So throughout the fiscal year, in the upcoming fiscal year, we'd like to bring back some policy and possibly even to advance the rate analysis if we're further along enough with the water study to do that. So that's a long way of saying we may want to advance that. And I think that would address Commissioner Shriver's issue, and the board could decide at that time if you wanted to adopt some type of incremental increase in terms of a policy. Okay.
That's, like I said, pretty much the CIP plan for public utilities. And also in what I'll be sending you, you can also see the vehicle replacement, what has outlined. Mr. Chris has outlined for the years going out for his vehicles and equipment. To go back to the CIP so that we can do the solid waste. Okay, for the solid waste for 2021, we've got 25,814 in for a vehicle and 52,000 for solid waste convenience sites improvements for the total of 77.8. Like I said, it's in your budget to be approved for 2021. For 21-22 and out, we've got projected the total of 588 for convenience site improvements. And I want to point out that I'm going to murder his last name, Mr. Lee,
Udenhammer.
thank you, are going to work on this again to come up with some really good numbers for vehicles and equipment replacement timeline by looking at our fixed assets and where our things are as far as age. So be looking for an updated one next year for sure that has more filled in for that kind of thing. And the same thing, this improvements would be coming from their fund balance, which they do not have at the moment. But that is, and hopefully grants and loans as well. And that's the 3 CIP recommendations that we have at the time.
Are there any questions? I know over the years, there's been discussions about vehicles, if we could have a planned replacement and a certain amount of money set aside, and that's what was in the that was given, or the plan for vehicle replacement in the general fund that was shown earlier, the first slide.
Yes, ma'am. The 825,000.
We have, that's general fund. Any questions about general fund or either one of our 2 enterprise funds, solid waste or public utilities? Okay, if not, now let's move along to the coronavirus relief funding that has been allocated to the county. We've received the notification that we have been allocated 1.3 million with an end date of December to be able to utilize that money. So Jamie is going to pull up some of the specifics from webinars that we have participated in and some guidance that we've gotten from the Office of State Budget and Management.
Yes, ma'am. This
I
is
think
the
Commissioner Foy has a question. He might need to unmute himself. Let's see.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think you said you're getting 1.3 million from the state for the corona stuff.
The coronavirus relief funds. Yes, sir.
Okay. Have
Yes,
you already
sir.
got that figured into this proposed budget?
We have not, and we're going to walk through exactly what the plan is. That's been designated or allocated if
So that-
the state accepts our plan.
Right.
And what we submit is approved. So we're going to walk through these examples with you. I mean,
So
the
that's
criteria. Yes, sir.
above and beyond the scope here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, Jamie.
Again, this is straight from a webinar presentation that we got from the Office of State Budget in reference to the CRF. As part of the CARES Act, the money came from the federal down through the state, and Franklin County's portion is roughly $1.3 million. And it's for necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency related to the coronavirus. It cannot be accounted for in the most recently approved budget as of March 27th, and it has to be incurred from March 1st through December 30th of 2020. So we can go back to March 1st and we can use our expenses up to December 30th. I am personally held responsible as being the finance director and signing the forms to account for these funds. And we do get it all up front, but there's a clawback. And so I have to do an accounting for it in October and December. And if we don't spend it or we spend it inappropriately, they will take it back. Let me see if I can get it to go to the next screen. I apologize. These are the guidelines that we have gotten on how we can spend this. Again, there's still a lot of unknowns associated with the virus and the expenditures of the funds that we're getting. Medical expenses, public health expenses, payroll expenses associated with the virus, specifically like our frontline workers, health department, EMS, and that kind of thing that we can trace back to COVID. Everything has to have the paperwork to document how it's related to COVID. Action to facilitate public health measures, expenses associated with the provision of economic support We cannot use this for revenue replacement. They have said that multiple times. And any other COVID-19 related expenses kind of gives us a catch-all for some other things that we hope to fill in on there. There is no double dipping. We cannot put an expense out for the CRF funds and also FEMA and try to get it replaced. The CRF is 100%. There is no state match funds. Again, no revenue replacement, and all the unspent funds as of December must be returned. That is where we are. We have to have a plan to Raleigh by June 1st with how we are expecting to spend this money. We are working right now, or I am working right now with getting how much we have expended so far for COVID-related expenses, including in payroll, and then what we're projecting to spend for all the necessary cleanings and PPE, et cetera, through December the 30th, and then anything else that we may be able to allocate towards this. You're muted, Miss Angela.
Yeah, I think Coy muted me. Okay, my turn.
Well, it looks like I have lost Angela and Jamie.
Can everyone hear me?
Can y'all hear us?
Got you now.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we're having a power glitch here.
Sorry.
The funding that Jamie has just reviewed with you, it is sent to the counties. The counties have the option of whether to use some of that funding and share it with, to share it with municipalities. I have a conference call scheduled for tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock. We're going to talk with our towns about the criteria, what we project to expend, and Jamie just gave you a rundown of some things that she's tabulating as we speak. One thing that she didn't touch on was a court order in terms of the cleaning at the courthouses. So there'll be cleaning associated by court order, additional cleaning that we'll be doing over and above what we have been doing, obviously, when the courts resume. But we're going to be looking at, is there any opportunity for some of this funding to also be used by our municipalities, particularly for PPE or some of their needs that would meet this criteria, and hopefully come up with a plan that will benefit all of Franklin County. I had asked Jamie to at least run the question by the Office of State Budget and Management as to whether or not we might be able to use some of this funding for an ambulance. And so tentatively, I think you got a favorable response as long as it was used for COVID-related purposes. So that's part of the plan, in addition to the expenses that she's mentioned that we're thinking about in terms of some of the county expenditures. But we hope to do some brainstorming and to have discussion with our town managers tomorrow on a Zoom call at 11, immediately following soon after the EOC meeting that we have every Friday morning. So, any other questions? And if this funding is approved, it would come back and offset some of the expenses that we have incurred. Going back to Commissioner Foy's question, it would come back to the fund, general fund. Yes, sir. So I think that I've covered what I was going to say in reference to the water and sewer rates. I did want to touch on one other topic. Commissioner Jones had brought forward the question in the last day or two. What about any discussion about the aquatic center? That's something that has been on, I think, the different surveys that we have done, Parks and Rec and so forth, as anything health and fitness related has gotten high markings in the studies. That is one funding associated with an aquatic center in the grant, in the budget proposal, but we are looking at different counties that have an aquatic center, how they funded those, and we'll certainly bring information back to the board if there are any grants associated with it, because health and wellness, it's particularly in this arena, was very important in the Parks and Rec studies, as was greenways and trails and so forth. So we're looking at opportunities to maybe be part of a network with other counties in reference to a trail project, regional trail project as well. So these are the only items that that have been brought forward since our meeting on Monday. I had indicated to you, I was going to also share with you a few stats in reference to the hospital. And I wanted just to hit a few of those with you now. Just at point in time, our emergency department in 2019 had over 13,000 visits, citizens that were patients there. And to date, in this calendar year, from January to April, we've had almost 4,000. COVID pandemic has actually reduced the ED visits 40% from the run rate. But our 13-bed geriatric unit in 2019, we had 120 patients, and we've seen 53 since January. Outpatient visits, over 2,300 for lab and imaging in the 2019 year. And so far in 2020, almost 700, 678. I will say that Bert Beard, the Chief Executive Officer, did note to me in some feedback that he had shared with me that the state has yet to extend Mariah Parham Franklin a 3-way contract for care for intended population that was the impetus for the DICS grant. So we will we'll certainly want to try to work with the state to see if we can move that along, and maybe have Bert to come in at a visit, at a board meeting, virtually or in person, to provide the commission a further update on that. And I know Commissioner Dunstan, you serve as a Board of Trustee member, but you've heard some of these stats. If there's anything that I left out that you want to add to it, but we are very pleased with the progress that our hospital has made. As I said in my budget message, we applied for Golden Leaf grant and Commerce grant. Over $1 million in construction has been completed in the past year, and we will continue and have been committed to seeking any grants that will ensure that we maintain healthcare here in Franklin County.
Angela,
Yes, sir.
could you email those stats to us?
I sure will. Yes, sir. He provided those just point in time through early April. So yes, sir. I'll be glad to.
Thank you.
And we will also email some of the accomplishments in 1920 in terms of the departments. But if there are any other items in terms of budgetary items that you want us to drill back down into, we're prepared to do that today. Or anything else that you'd like for us to provide some additional information. Commissioner Bunn.
Yes, ma'am. The solid waste fee increase in $10. I would like to see if it would be possible not to do an increase on the solid waste fees. Due to the pandemic and the economic toll on the citizens of the county, I think we're putting a whole lot on them with the other fees like permits and all increasing such as they are. And I would also like to see if we could give our citizens the 2,000 pounds a year free that we took away from them last year back.
If we don't have an increase, that's going to be more coming out of the general fund. And if we don't have the any fees associated with the cost of the 2,000 pounds, that's going to be more costs that will be absorbed by the solid waste fund. The auditors did recommend us getting away from the general fund contribution in order to balance that budget. It needs to be a fee covered by fees. We did do some comparison of other counties, and we're very competitive even after the rate increase. But that would certainly be a board decision. I know any type of increases, especially now, we are certainly very sensitive to. The problem that we have is the post-closure cost that we know that are coming. And just this year, we have had the consultants to come before you to discuss the additional wells and the monitoring cost, added cost that's going to occur. And when they go in, if they have any findings, then we have to develop a plan. And some of those costs have been pretty expensive. I know we had one that was projected at about 96,000. So they're pretty high when there's some findings. So all of that played into the decision. And I certainly didn't want to have to make the recommendation for rate increase, but the funds will have to come from somewhere to cover the budget to make it whole without a general fund contribution.
Ms. Harris, I noticed in the budget currently recommended that it's showing a transfer from the general fund last year was $130,800. And then the year before that, or that same year, we approved 400, we only ended up moving 130. Do we
That's
have
right.
a rolling debt to the solid waste fund from the general fund? Is there like a balance out there of $1 million or $3 million or?
Yeah. Jamie, you want to address what that amount is?
We started the solid waste fund with no capital money whatsoever.
Right.
Okay.
So they started with zero money. And so we've had to loan them money in the past. And in fiscal year 19, we did loan them money, and we did it as a loan from the general fund by the recommendation of our auditors and the LGC, because that is something that we can get letters from the LGC about general fund supporting the enterprise funds. So it is a loan to them. And then, so that we did it in 2019. And then in 2020, our current budget, we did budget 400 and some thousand. I don't have it right in front of me. I apologize.
That 412, I believe. Yes, sir.
Yes,
That's it.
we
Mhm.
budgeted that, but we are anticipating only using 130,000. Again, we don't know what that number is going to be until we're completely done with our fiscal year and our audit.
That's right.
But that would be another loan to add to what we already have given them. And then in the 2021 budget that we have presented to you, there is no loan from the general fund. Does that
So-
answer your question?
I'm looking for that magical balance, that magical amount of money we have lended them over the course of its existence from the general fund, or the amount of money we've pulled out of the general fund, whether it's been a loan or just an appropriation. Do we have a number?
Can I get you that information and email it to all of you?
Absolutely.
It may be tomorrow morning, but I will get you that information.
And this
That's
will be a 5-year look back. We started, I believe, in the 2015 year. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
I'll get you that information and I'll email it to all of the commissioners.
All right. Anything
Any
else?
other questions?
I got a question.
Yes, Mr. Moore.
Okay, I guess this one's gonna go to the Parks and Recreation question. I know a couple meetings ago, we approved submitting to the state to get a PARTIF grant for, I guess, our park expansion in the north there. And I think if that gets approved, I think it's a 50-50 type grant, which would be what, $500,000 or $1 million from both sides? Have you got that budgeted in if it does get approved?
If it's approved, I think we were looking at Parks and, Rec and Lou money being the match already in hand, the match for the part of application using the Rec and Lou money.
Okay, so your capital that you already have instead of money.
That's right. We would not be asking for additional county money.
If we get approved for it.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. All right, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, anything else? Ms. Harris, do you have anything else?
I do not. I just, again, can't emphasize how important it is to have a team that's everywhere, everyone is rowing the same direction. And our department heads have just done a phenomenal job of keeping focused on the budget while focusing on all of these calls and webinars and conferences and working virtually in many cases. It's just been a very different environment, but we're very, very pleased with the end product in terms of the budget. I will say that if our projections are low in terms of revenue, and I said this the other night, we would certainly come back to the board and may have to make some recommendations for some changes in the new fiscal year, whether it's cuts or changes in hours or whatever. You know, we will adjust just like we did during the Great Recession. But I feel that the projections that we have in place are right sized for Franklin County and are very similar, quite frankly, in fact, with what a number of counties are doing. At the start of the call, Kristen King was joking with me a little bit about going out this morning earlier in the rain to meet the folks that were delivering a tractor at the airport. And I just, on some positive news, everyone, especially the board members that participate at airport board meetings and on the advisory board there, know that we've needed a tractor for Ronnie for a number of years. When we received some grant funding at the airport to offset some, oh, well, yeah, there you go. I'm going to cut grass on my lunch hour if that's okay. But when we received some grant funds, I think it was a little over $69,000 to cover electrical cost, your salaries, and just a host of COVID-related costs, that was very helpful. In addition to that, we had a number of expenses, as you might would imagine, fuel expenses being down during this time. So we had an opportunity to get some quotes on a tractor and to be able to acquire a tractor. That was requested for the upcoming year, but we went ahead and moved forward to have that available at the airport. And we're real excited about that. The tractor that we have in place will continue to be used for some hard to get areas, and it'll be a supplement and could potentially be used elsewhere. But I know Commissioner Bunn and Commissioner Dickerson hear this all the time about the need for the tractor. So we were real pleased to get that this morning. And although Bo could not be there, he had the pictures texted to him. We took a host of pictures and he was very, very happy. But that's something good for some time. And we did do business locally.
Very good. Thank you so much. Ms. Holtzman, thank you for your presentation. Ms. Harris, thank you for your work. We certainly are blessed in this county to have the leadership. We operate under a county manager, county commissioner form of government. And we thank the manager and her staff for your everyday activity and the work that you do on a daily basis to bring us to the point where we are in the midst of this pandemic, that we can present a budget that has no tax increase for a new year and covers basically all of the needs that the county has at this particular time. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Is that motion made by Mr. Bunn?
Yes.
Second by Mr. Speed? Is that right?
No, I think it was.
second it.
Okay, Mr. Shriver. Are there any questions?
Mr. Dunstan,
Yes,
before you take a vote, if I could just interject really quickly and remind everybody that the public hearing on the budget will be held on June 1st. But because of the new rules regarding everything with COVID, we'll hold the public hearing that night, but we won't be able to take any kind of vote. We have to wait 24 hours after the close of that hearing. And so just so that everybody knows that moving forward, that the hearing is now scheduled for the 1st.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
Just a comment, Commissioner Dunstan. Our attorney did follow up and with the School of Government. If the board chose to recess its meeting on the 1st, schedule it for a couple of days later, as Kristen just pointed out, the 24-hour period, you would certainly be well within your rights if you wanted to adopt the budget 24 hours later. Pete, if there's anything else that you wanted to comment on, but I appreciate you obtaining that clarification. We didn't know if it needed to be a separate meeting or a recess meeting. And I believe that was the guidance that you'd received.
It'd be a recess meeting, would be the easiest thing to do without having to wait to the next regular scheduled meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And it can be like this meeting.
Thank you. That's everything.
All right. We have a roll call vote. Mr. Bunn,
Yes.
Mr. Schreiber,
Yes.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones,
And unmute, yes.
Madam Vice Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Speed.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and it is so ordered.
Ms. Dickerson, I appreciate Warren allowing you to use your office.
Say that again, Pete?
Isn't that the office in Warrenton?
It is.
Do we owe them any rental fee for this?
Do what?
You have to pay them any rent for the use of your office.
I don't think so. This is the county, Franklin County computer.
All right.
Right.
This is we'll have that discussion separately from this meeting. Discuss that from any comments that may be recorded for this meeting. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Y'all, Jim.